What's going on, Falcon fan? This is your boy Ricondo. Come back at you with another video. And guys, it is official. The Atlanta Falcons have hired the former head coach from the Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski. Like I said, they moved up the date to trying to cut him off from meeting with the Tennessee Titans tomorrow. And from all the information that was coming out, that if he sold those guys tonight, that he probably was going to be the next coach for the Atlanta Falcons. um I know we have a lot of mixed emotions out the fan base, but I really believe that Atlanta Falcons did their due diligence on this search. They interviewed 10 coaches, all types of coaches. You go look at the number of coaches they interviewed. Well, a lot of defensive coaches. No, the word on the street, Arthur Blank wanted somebody with experience, and once John Harbaugh went off the table, Greg Stefanski was the next guy on the table, right? This is a guy that had two head coaches of the years, um, took that Cleveland franchise when it was desolate to the playoffs twice, right? The last two seasons, we still gonna have to look at that and look at the enigma that was. Um, to try to explain what really happened in those last two seasons. But if you look at his tenure, once that Deshaun Watson trade was made, right? They gave up 3 first-round picks in that trade, and when you do that, you're expected to win, right? Because you give away all your future draft capital and trying to build a team, you expect to take the team that you have and do something with it. And unfortunately, Deshaun Watson just didn't, give the return on investment like they expected. He like I said, he spent the first 11 games suspended. Then he came back and it was up and down. Then he sustained an injury. And then you look at the mess that the Cleveland Browns put themselves in last year when you go out and you draft two rookie quarterbacks and create the whole quarterback conundrum that they had, right? It's no way you can develop that many young quarterbacks and then have two older quarterbacks. It was just a mess, right? So they I'm pretty sure he had to explain, that scenario, what was going on there. And but if you go look at his tenure in Minnesota and his tenure in Cleveland Brown and look at it as a whole, and like I said, kind of look away from those 2 seasons that he did with the Cleveland Browns, you like what you've seen for him as a coach in this league. This is a statement from Mr. Arthur Blank on the hire of Coach Stefanski. And Kevin Stefanski, we have found a coach with the right vision, focus, and demeanor to lead our team into the future. From all research and a wonderful visit with him tonight, I believe he is the right coach to take our talent on our roster to a new level and work with Matt, our new GM, and all our football personnel to build a strong foundation in place and take it to new heights. He has a great plan for his staff, and he has learned many things during his stops in Cleveland and Minnesota. I have prepared him. He has prepared him for this moment. Our objective is to win games and contend for championships every year. That is where our shared focus will remain. We are committed to putting our necessary support and resources around Coach Stefanski to achieve our success, and work has already begun. So that's the statement from the owner, Mr. Arthur Blank. Seemed like he's already on board with it. Of course, he had to make the final decision. We know that he put Matt Ryan in a place to get his ear to what he thought about Coach Stefanski. And there you have it, guys. Coach Stefanski is our new head coach. Um, this right here brings up a lot of questions when I think about this, right? I think the first question I guess needs to be asked is about Kirk Cousins, right? So we all know Kirk Cousins restructured his contract and pretty much put all his money into 2027, which means, go back and remember to the video I said, March 13th is the crucial deadline. If they decide to keep Kirk Cousins on this roster past March 13th, they will owe him $67.9 million in 2027. which means I just don't anticipate him playing on that contract. Now they can actually restructure another deal with him to lower that number in 2027. They can do that, but for all intents and purposes, I think they're going to move on from Kirk Cousins. However, if you look at the relationship and the good success that Kevin Stefanski had with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, you would seem that would be a good fit. Especially, we don't know the status of Michael Penix going into next season. Will he be ready to go by game one? Right. So, whatever decision that they do make, they have to find a veteran quarterback to come in to fill in for Michael Penix Jr. until he's healthy to go. So that's one of the things you think about, right? The question is going to be who's going to be his offensive coordinator. Right now, it sounds like Tommy Reese is going to come over with him and be his offensive coordinator. You kind of like what you saw what Tommy Reese was doing with the young quarterbacks that he had in Cleveland. You know, like I said, I can't explain what happened with that whole quarterback situation. I thought it was a mess. I thought that bringing in having two veteran quarterbacks and Kenny Pickett and the old head there, I just thought that it didn't give those young guys opportunities to develop. Right now, to my knowledge, they did have like a developmental session with those guys on the side and things like that. But ooh, what happened? Okay. So what I'm saying is, I just don't know about the the quarterback conundrum that they had in and I think that's where everybody hesitation is when they're looking at the higher grade Stefanski because what happened in the last two seasons where he went 8-26, and that's inexcusable, right? So when you come in like we just got rid of a coach that was losing, then you bring in a coach that lost his last two seasons, but for whatever reason he was able to sell this group in the leadership in the Atlanta Falcons that he's the right man for this new job to take on this talent that the Atlanta Falcons is going to embark. So we know the rumors out. Tommy Reese is coming to be his offensive coordinator. The question is, we haven't heard about his defensive coordinator. We knew that from reports that he was willing, to keep Jeff Ulbrich on. And if he do that, I think that would smooth over with some of the fan base that don't want him because they like the way our defense is playing, and going into the second year up on the Jeff Ulbrich, their defense, you would hope you would see some even more improvements with that. So that's something to look for and look forward to. Let's get to some of these comments though. So we go. Eddie said Stefanski is a good coach and keep coaches around him and develops as well. We'll see. He said Tommy Reese is expected to be his new offensive coordinator, and hopefully he can help develop Michael Penix there. T. Terry says, Ricondo, I just said yesterday that Matt Ryan homeboy from Philadelphia area, they grew up together in the same neighborhood. Oh, I did not know they grew up in the same neighborhood. I knew they were both from Philadelphia. And I'm going to tell you this, man. I didn't know Kevin Stefanski was only 43 years old. I thought he was older than that. He looked old, man, to be honest with you. Those years in Cleveland hasn't done justice to him at all. But he's only 43. So, that's let you know that he's not real old. He can have some room to develop a little bit more. That would be great for him. So we'll see what happens with that. But, he's here. He's our guy. Let's see here. Sanders made the Browns a clown show, right? So I don't want to put all the all it on Sanders because he's a rookie quarterback. I think the situation, like I said, to me, when you draft a guy in the third round and come back and draft a guy in the fifth round, to me that makes it a situation that's just crazy in itself. And then all the smoke around the young quarterback in Sanders anyway is the fact that a lot of people had him slated to go early in the draft, right? And that's probably one of the biggest stories in draft history where they seen a guy drop that far. And then the fact that Cleveland Browns had already picked the guy in third round and come back and pick a guy in the fifth round. And all season long, it was just to talk about, the quarterback situation in Cleveland. So I think Greg Stefanski, you know, handled it the way he handled it. From what we heard, that Dylan Gabriel was his guy. Shadur Sanders was never his guy. So when in that situation, you can see how he was put in a situation where he had to, make it work with whatever way he could. So, like I said, maybe the reporters are asked, the question that, and maybe he'll say he don't even want to talk about Cleveland, which I understand that as well. So we'll just see what happened with that. Eddie says he has been around pretty smart football coach. Yep. Yep. But like I said, guys, now the next step is the staff, right? I think what's going to be important for Kevin Stefanski, and I think for any coach that comes in, is to be able to build a really good, solid staff there, and make sure that you have the people around you to help build this team. I mean, we already know the talent that Atlanta Falcons have on this team, um, from the skill positions to the offensive line, um, to the young defensive core that they just drafted in the last 2 seasons. I mean, the last 2 seasons. So think about that. You got Brandon Dorless. We still have Braylon Trice coming back. We haven't seen what Braylon Trice could bring to the table. That's another young guy. Zach Harrison, another guy that went out, had four and a half sacks before he went out. So that's going to be good, right? Root Roro showed flashes. Of course, Jalen and James Pierce Jr. showed a lot of flashes. Billy Bowman was a stud before he went down with his Achilles injury. Um, and Xavier Watts and Jesse Bates. What else we can say about those guys, along with AJ Terrell? So you love the nucleus of this team that we got. Of course, the biggest question mark is going to be quarterback, and how they work this thing. So now that we have a head coach in place, we can kind of get a little bit more insight into his plans for going to get a quarterback. Of course, you're not going to say any names, but they have to find a bridge, right? Because you do not know the timeline here or what's going to take place for the Michael Penix Jr. his rehab, right? He went down after week 8, right? I think he went down after week 8. So if you look at that, I think that 9-month timeline, I put him around the end of July, that's before training camp. So we don't know his timeline, right? But it's just before training camp. That's good, but that still means he's going to miss all OTAs. He's going to miss all mini camps and all that stuff, and so he's not going to be ready, to be on the field, if anything, until sometime in training camp. And so, in my estimate, coming in, learning a new offense, that's going to put him behind. So you have to have somebody to come in, step in, and take the place of what you want to see from from that quarterback position to get this team, going in the right direction. So that's what we're going to see. Got it. Stefanski can bring in a sack leader with him. No, he can't go get Myles Garrett. That would be awesome, though. All I can think of how he dealt with Shadur, and that's what. And that's, like I said, that's what a lot of the fan base is talking about, right? But you don't look past that, because that's what when I'm doing, I'm looking past any situations you had with the other organization, right? That's what you got to do, and see how this new thing is going to go. I look at the resume. I look at his philosophy, his scheme. That's what you want to take from it. Don't look at situations where people at, right? Because what you've seen at one situation, you don't know, the dynamic in that organization, from the owner to the GM to, what he was allowed to do and what he was not allowed to do. We don't know that, right? Like I said, we do know it doesn't make sense to draft 2 quarterbacks in the same draft, right? So who ideal was do that? And I think when they did that, it just caused too much chaos, in my opinion. I just really do, especially when you already had 2 veteran quarterbacks on your staff. I mean, on your roster, right? And then not alone, you had Deshaun Watson on your roster as well. So Kenny Pickett, you got him, you got Joe Flacco, who's in his 40s. You got Deshaun Watson's who's recovering. Then you bring in 2 more quarterbacks into the room. That was, I don't know what else we thought was going to happen when they had to create a chaos like that. So um, you got to look past that situation right now. I think if the Atlanta Falcons just went out and hired Kevin Stefanski right off the bat, you would think, they didn't do their due diligence. They didn't take their time. They didn't follow through the process that they had laid out, trying to find the right man for the job. But in this case, the fact that they went through 10 coaches, they brought in 2 consultant agencies to go through and look at these guys' resumes and break it down. They had a good interview with him today. And from all that, they decided that he was the right man for the job. Arthur Blank cleaned house. He brought in Matt Ryan, a guy that knows about football. And so for me, I'm going to take it to hopefully that, having Matt Ryan there, he understands football. He understands Coach Stefanski philosophies, and they believe that they got the right man for the job. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And let's see how we move forward with this. He runs a 3 tight end set, so Pitts is going to be here. That's going to be interesting as well. What they're going to do with Kyle Pitts, right? Kyle Pitts is a free agent. Will they franchise tag him? Right? What would his asking price be? I think they need to keep Kyle Pitts. I really do. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people feel like some team gonna come offer him a lot of money. You look at somebody like Tennessee Titans, got $100 million to play with. They can probably offer Kyle Pitts more than we can, right? If that happens, but if they franchise tag him, we don't have to worry about that. So that's one of the things. Like I said, I would imagine go ahead and franchise and tag Kyle Pitts, try to work out a long-term deal with him, and go on from there. We got another thing says Stefanski is a good adjustable offense. Yeah, I mean, you guys can say what you want to say, but his offense, he does have a good offensive scheme. He really do. He really does. I mean, go look at what he was able to do. Like I said, the years with Nick Chubb, that running game. He's all about running game. What I really like is the ability to be up on the center and utilize play action pass. That's one thing we did not see with Zach Robinson. A lot of shotgun until the second half of the season when Kirk Cousins got it. For some reason, he decided to go up on the shotgun a whole lot. I mean, go up on the center a whole lot. And I don't know why he was afraid to do that with Michael Penix. Michael Penix can run the offense up on the center. Let's go back and look at his college tape. He was not in shotgun all the time. He was able to get up on the center, so it wouldn't be something foreign to Michael Penix Jr. to play up on the center. So I do like that. I think playing up on the center really helps your run game, and I definitely know that it helps your play action pass a lot, right? And the ability to, Michael Penix with his arm talent that he has, I think that'll work really well with what Kevin Stefanski can bring to the table. Snake says, for several years he made miracles happen with subpar teams. Exactly. I mean, especially think about it. Like I said, you give up 3 first-round picks, right? You're trying to build a team with later round picks and things like that, right? And then he did have talent. Now, don't get me wrong. On the defense side of the ball, that was a really talented defense, right? I mean, you had, like you said, the sack leader over there. You had a really 2 really good solid cornerbacks. You had a couple of good safeties, and they drafted really well this past season, with their draft class. But for the most part, you are correct. team building was a little shaky over there, how they was trying to build that team. So that's one of the things we definitely got to look at. Um, he's bringing chaos and disaster with him, and our record falls below our record this year. Matt will be labeled as a failure in his first year. So, like I said, that's looking to me. That's just being, you don't know what's going to happen, right? This is one of the things um, that some people have to think about, right? Because when you don't get what you want, you just start saying it's not going to work. And at this point in time, we don't know if it's going to work or not. I think we need to let it play out and see what happens. Like I said, I think the next important step for Kevin Stefanski is his staff, right? See the staff he assembles and see if it seems like he really have a grasp on how he's going to be able to build this team, right? Listen to Mr. Blank, his 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 focus, his vision, his plans. They like what they heard, right? And who are we to tell guys that interview the guy for hours that they didn't he don't have what it takes, right? I mean, we looking at guys, and I know so many people wanted Clint Kubiak, right? But Clint Kubiak is a good offensive coordinator. We don't know if he's going to be a good head coach. We don't know that, right? We just don't know if he's going to be a good head coach, and that's just the truth of the matter. We don't know that. Um, His bread and butter is power offense with good O line and running backs. Yes, so that's another question. You talk about O line. Um, will he make adjustments on the O line? Right. This O line has been solid for years, but his running. I don't know if how much wide zone he run. Does he run more gap? Right. That's going to be something to find out. I mean, either way, Bijan be able to do both. If you go back to Texas, I think Bijan ran a little bit more gap scheme instead of wide zone. Of course, since he been in Atlanta, he been running a little bit more wide zone. But if he falls up under the same tree as the Shanahan's, he will be able to do that wide zone scheme. So, and with that being said, Dwayne Leffert, our offensive line coach, um, will he be retained? That'll be another question that we'll have to find out. If Dwayne Leffert going to stick here with the offensive line. He's been here through two coaching changes already, and the offensive line being solid. He was here with Arthur Smith was here. He was here with Raheem Morris was here. Will he be here when Kevin Stefanski start to assemble his staff? So that's going to be something that we'll definitely have to see. Um, and he says, for me personally, I made the right call on the season coach based on what there was out there to win and compete now, right? So for me, because of the uncertainty of the quarterback position, I'm not putting so much stress on to compete now. Just me. Like I think we need to see Michael Penix develop first, and then once you do that, I think they have the talent to compete now, and especially in the NFC South. However, if you look at the Atlanta Falcons schedule for 2026, it's not easy. It's a tough schedule. So the NFC South is going to be in some dog fights this year for sure. And to that point, I do agree having a veteran guy to come in to be able to right the ship in some of these tougher games that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be playing this year is going to be really, really interesting. When you talk about the defense coordinator position, right? It's going to be interesting if they decide to keep Jeff Ulbrich, but if not, and if Jim Schwartz do not get a head coaching jobs, will he be willing to come over to the Atlanta Falcons and take over um, that role here with the Atlanta Falcons? If he does, I do really like Jim Schwartz and the way he put his teams together. It'd be interesting to see how, because sometimes when you bring in defenses, it's about the personnel you have. Atlanta Falcons have a light defensive line. I think if anything, that's one thing they need to really go into, this offseason and put some meat on the defensive line. Because to me, the defensive line is just too light for me. I don't like the way it looks, especially when being able to stop the run game. That's what one that, to me, if you look at the defense, that's where they fell short at, being able to stop the run, because they didn't have no big bodies there. And I think that's something that they definitely need to work on to make sure they get some big bodies. So Let's see here. He runs the same offense as Clint do in Seattle. Yep, he does. He really do. They pretty much run the same, but it really is not about the offense. It's about how you play call, man, and that's where it really boils down to. Because a lot of these offenses are the same, but it's how you play call and how you design, how you put your game plans together. That's what's going to really matter, right? And because you're going against the opposing defenses, and you got to have a solid game plan to put together to to counteract what they're doing. And if you're not able to do that, it don't matter if you can have the best offense in the world, but if you don't know how to put a game plan together and script your game plan the right way, it's not going to work for you. Stefanski won't be wearing capri pants. Oh man. Let's see here. We got, especially for the players and talent in Atlanta have now build on it, develop, the Falcons can potentially go deep in the playoffs for next season. I like your optimism. I really do. Rakundo, who's the DC for the Browns? Jim Schwartz is the defensive coordinator for the Browns. Now he had a second interview with the Cleveland Browns this weekend, so they might decide to bring him in to be the head coach for the Cleveland Browns. If that's the case. You know, he's going to stay there, of course, right? But if he doesn't get a get the head coaching job, because I think he's also interviewed with the Baltimore Ravens as well. So if he don't get a head coaching job and he decides to come on down to Atlanta, hey, and that's if Kevin Stefanski does not decide to keep Jeff Ulbrich, right? So we'll just have to see. I'm better sure that the Falcons keep RDC, and that could be the case. I mean, I'm cool with that. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I'm cool with that. I like the way he was able to do, and then that way that defense don't have to learn something new, right? They can just build on what they had. I mean, a team that had 57 sacks, 16 turnovers. I mean, I was really impressed with the Atlanta Falcons was able to bring to the table this year from a defense standpoint. Still have to have some tweaks. Second cornerback, like I said, beef up the middle a little bit more to be able to start the run. If they do those things, this defense have potential to be, top 5 in the league. I do believe that. I'm not worried about Michael Penix. It's not Zach Robinson's no more. It's better coaching development already, 100%. I don't care. You could have went with any other offensive coordinator. You 100% on that. Michael Penix is going to be coached better than he was last year. That's 100%. I do agree with that. You say Jim Schwartz, who is outstanding DC, proven he will more bigger 0-3 technique. There you go. He said Eddie said he's going to bring in those zeros and those 3 techniques, and that's what we need because you want to be able to start the run game, right? Once you be able to start the run game, you can be able to pin your ears back and get after the quarterback, which Atlanta Falcons was really good at this past season. So if you can stop the run, you can be able to play the kind of defense you want to play, and that's what I like to see. So guys, now we talked about the head coach and be him and his staff. The next thing is, when will we hear the announcement of our general manager? Right now, I talked about Josh Williams potentially being the GM for the Atlanta Falcons. The question is, what's the score right now? It's 34-6. So if it is Josh Williams, we can probably hear that tomorrow. Right now, the question: does Kevin Stefanski, have any that same vision with Josh Williams? Because you have to be able to have that, right? They kind of said they was trying to do this concurrently, but right now they already made the coach, to hire the head coach. Now, a lot of people think it might be Ian Cunningham, and if it's going to be Ian Cunningham, he does not play until tomorrow. So whatever the outcome of that game, we might be waiting, a while to hear from the general manager spot if it's not Josh Williams. It seems like Josh Williams will be free after tonight, 34-6, and it's the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. So um, we'll definitely be able to bring him on down the road if they have decided that's the guy they want to be come in to run the which in my opinion, that GM hire is the most important part around this time of the year, especially this time of the year. Like I said, 2 weeks after the the Super Bowl is the combine. You have all those all-star games that's coming up. You have the Senior Bowl, East West Shrine game. So all those different games coming up. It's going to really be important to see what this new GM is going to be able to get together, because he's got to hit the ground running, man. They got to, like I said, they got to do a quick, real thorough overhaul of this roster and make sure that they can identify the deficiencies that they got. They got to look at their own free agents and make sure they make a decision on those guys, and they have to make a decision on Kirk Cousins, right? So it's so many things that this new GM has got to decide. So great, we got the head coach hired, but now they need to focus on the general manager spot, get him in here so these guys can really start to build this thing together. That should be what they should be focusing on, and hopefully they can do that. Why didn't they hire the GM first? This works better because of the whole timing thing. Most of the GMs that they interviewed is still in the playoffs right now, so you would have to wait. You have to wait, and then if you guys remember the timeline that I went through after this divisional round, right? So they can do a lot of interviews this upcoming week for all these guys, right? You get the head coach because it's eight head coach openings that's already out there. You want to go ahead and get your guy. You don't want to be getting the third and fourth picks. You want to get your guy. So that's why they was able to go ahead and get their head coach that they wanted right away, because we know that Stefanski was going to see the Titans tomorrow. Maybe they would have went ahead and hired him. Then Atlanta Falcons be going to the third guy, right? So if this their first choice, you want to go ahead and lock him in. That's why they did that, right? And also, it's no other team need general managers. So the Atlanta Falcons is the only one that needs to hire a general manager. And that being to say, they can take their time because they're not in competition with any other team for a general manager. So they can pick the one they want and be strategic about it. But the head coaching, it was totally different. It was 8 openings open, and they had to jump on their guy fast. Just like the New York Giants did, they focused all in on John Harbaugh, and that's they got. That's the one they got. It sounds like that the Atlanta Falcons, once John Harbaugh was off the table, they focused on Kevin Stefanski, and that's why they changed their interview date from tomorrow to today. And they was able to jump in front of the Tennessee Titans to get their guy. So that's why they decided to hire the head coach first. But in my opinion, I believe they already know who their general manager is going to be. I really do, because they also mentioned that they was going to do general manager interviews, and we haven't heard any interview from the general manager, which tells me they already know who he is. We just don't know. I think two that we're hearing is Josh Williams from the San Francisco 49ers and Ian Cunningham from the Chicago Bears. Both teams which still playing in the playoffs. So that's why they decided to do that. D. Terry said, which GM is from Philadelphia? I don't know if either one of those GM is from Philadelphia. Said Bijan has approved the hire. Of course, because Bijan like to run the ball, and we know that Kevin Stefanski is going to run the rock. That's 100%. He's going to run the rock. And Bijan is a team player anyway. What else you thought Bijan was going to say and what he was going to do? I'm curious to feel how Michael Penix feel about it, and we definitely going to hear what Kirk Cousins feel about it, because Kirk Cousins is currently on CBS doing doing commentating, doing the CBS show this weekend. So It's gonna be interesting to hear Kirk Cousins' thoughts on Kevin Stefanski. We know he has a good relationship with him, and we'll see. And that's I'm telling you, man, the Kirk Cousins thing is gonna be interesting because for all intents and purposes, to me, Kirk Cousins, by restructuring his contract, it kind of put him in a bind where the Atlanta Falcons either going to have to say he's the future for like the next 2 years, or they're going to cut bait. That's really it's only two choices there, and so that's really Kirk Cousins kind of put the onus on the Atlanta Falcons to make a decision by restructuring his contract because there is no way they're going into next season owing him 67.9 million. They already got off all guaranteed money for him. They gave him 100 million guaranteed, but by moving his money to 2027, if he's on the roster by March 13th, they guarantee him that money as well. And I just don't think the Atlanta Falcons are going to do that. Could be wrong, but I just don't think they're going to do that. And if they do, I'm gonna be like confused a little bit because I won't understand what's the game plan um, with a 38-year quarterback and you invested in an 8th round pick in the other quarterback and you're gonna have this guy here and let Michael Penix's contract run out without finding out if he's the guy. So that's why I would be confused if Kirk Cousins on this team next year. I'm just saying it. I'm just be honest about it. Who do you have winning the Super Bowl this year? I don't know, man. It's a toss up. I'm gonna be honest with you. Okay, the Los Angeles Rams. Just say that. I think Matthew Stafford the best quarterback left in this playoffs. So I'm just going with the Los Angeles Rams. I'm just going with the quarterback. I'm going with Matthew Stafford. That's who I got winning it all. The Chicago definitely gonna have something to say about that tomorrow. You know, in the cold, because I think they're playing a night game, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they're playing the 6:30 game, so it's gonna be cold in Chicago um, tomorrow. So that's gonna be a really good game. So I'm rooting for Matthew Stafford. So um, Recurrent is 30. That's my point exactly. He's old, man. He's an old guy. So I agree with you 100%. If he's on the team, I don't know the vision. I'll be confused about the vision. I know that we don't have a quarterback right now, but Kirk Cousins to me because of the financial implications, I wouldn't understand it. That's all I'm saying. I'm rooting for Seahawks and the Texans. That would be an interesting Super Bowl. That would be an interesting Super Bowl, the Seahawks and the Texans. Um, it's definitely a toss up. Who do you got coming out AFC? So AFC. Hmm. Well, I can tell you this much: if that Texan defense played like it played last weekend, they coming out. That defense was ridiculous, man. The question I have is: it the defense was that good, or was Arthur Smith play calling that bad? I don't know, right? We'll definitely have opportunity to find out tomorrow when they play the Patriots. You know, so that's going to be interesting to see if the defense that good or if Arthur Smith play calling was that bad. I don't know, man. But if the Texans play like they played um, last weekend, it's going to be something serious to watch out for. Once the GM is hired, the work will begin. Kurt and other player contract. Yeah. Kurt contract already been decided. I'm sorry to tell you that. It's been decided, man. He made that decision. Like I said, Kirk Cousins actually forced Atlanta Falcons to make a decision. That's pretty much what he did. He is not old. Look at Tom Brady, A-Rod, Tessa Reddick. Okay. Don't ever put Kirk Cousins in the same sentence with Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. No, don't ever do that. Like both of those guys are league MVPs, won Super Bowls. Kirk Cousins won one playoff game his whole career. I mean, let's be honest. I think that one playoff game with Kevin Stefanski too, if I'm not mistaken. So, so that's interesting. Um, It says it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams or the Seattle Seahawks. Well, whoever's going to the Super Bowl, they got to go through Seattle in the NFC because Seattle is putting a whooping on the San Francisco 49ers right now. And it was over from the first play of the game when Shaheed took that kickoff back, man. Say Stroud is struggling, and New England defense isn't having it. Yeah, man. CJ Stroud, he tried to get that game away last week, 100%, 100%. But man, don't forget, it's not like Drake May is a savvy veteran quarterback. He's a young guy, and that defense started to chump down the way they did Aaron Rodgers. That's all I'm saying, man. But Mike Vrabel was a great coach. I think he'll have a great game plan. And Mike McDaniel is a genius when it comes to calling plays, man. So Josh McDaniel, some say not Mike. Josh McDaniel is a genius to calling plays. So that's going to be really interesting to see. But guys, there you have it. That's the quick reaction of the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Once we get more details about his staff and things like that, we'll definitely come in and talk about it more. So tune in tomorrow. So once I get more details about the staff and things like that, because we'll get more details coming out about that. What it's going to do with Jeff Ulbrich, guys like Dwayne Leffert, if he's going to be retained as the offensive line coach. But I do imagine a lot of change in staff, right? We already talked about the offensive coordinator potentially being, Tommy Reese coming in. We know we should have a different special team coach, which is going to be really huge for us because our special team was atrocious this year. And guys, you see how important special teams been in the playoffs, right? Field goals and things like that, kickoff and kickoff return. Those things that really played a factor in these playoffs. So, don't think special team is not important. I mean, just punts in itself, pinning your opponent back, within the 10-yard line. That's really important in playoff football. So special teams is important. So his hire for special teams coordinator is going to be really, really important, especially the way the Atlanta Falcons special teams played this past season, right? Defensive coordinator, if he decides to keep Ulbrich, that's going to be something to look at, because those two guys never worked together, right? And they have to get on the same page and make sure that Ulbrich understands what Kevin Stefanski wants out of defense. So we'll see. But like my opinion, if Jim Schwartz did not get a job, I think Kevin Stefanski probably would rather have him, up on the helm. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, But there you have it, guys. Please give me your thoughts on this because I know a lot of people have their reservations about Kevin Stefanski coming in a lot, and I think a lot has more to do with how you feel about how he handled the quarterback situation in Cleveland, vice his actually coaching credentials or how good of a coach he is. So what I'm trying to tell you guys, instead of looking at the situation how it was in Cleveland about the quarterback situation and things like that, look at his resume, look at his coaching credentials, look at and see, does he know how to lead a football team? That's what you need to be looking at, and kind of take your personal feelings out of it, because when you do that, I think you're clouding, was this a good decision or not, right? Only time will tell, right? And this is Matt Ryan's first decision as the president of football, right? To bring in Kevin Stefanski. You guys all love Matt Ryan, right? So this take his judgment and see if he made the right decision. And if he don't, down the road we can criticize him for it. But right now at this time, let's see where we go from here, right? We got a new head coach, to take this team in a different direction. From what the statement that Arthur Blank put out today, it seems like he's pleased with what they heard tonight with Kevin Stefanski, and he's the man for them moving forward. So So let's see what happens, guys. Let's just stand back and see what happens. Next is staff, GM, and then off season. Atlanta Falcons going to get to rolling. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.